The rain pounded against my apartment window like angry fists demanding entry. I huddled on my bathroom floor, the cold tiles numbing my legs as I clutched my phone with trembling fingers. Mascara-stained tears blurred my vision, making the numbers swim before me. I needed to call Melissa. She was the only one who could help me now. Please pick up, I whispered, my voice breaking as I dialed the familiar number. Or what I thought was familiar. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely tap the screen. On the third ring, a deep voice answered. Definitely not Melissa's cheerful soprano. Speak. Just one word, but it carried the weight of unquestioned authority. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Wrong number. But I was too far gone in my panic to think clearly. I'm sorry, I stammered, tears flowing freely now. Wrong number. I moved to end the call, but before I could, the voice spoke again. You're crying. It wasn't a question, just a simple observation stated with disturbing calm. It's nothing. I'm fine. I lied automatically, the way I'd been lying to myself for months. A beat of silence then. No, you're not. Another statement of fact, brooking no argument. Where are you? The question startled me. What? Why would I tell you that? I don't even know who you are. Because you called me, he replied logically, and because whoever made you cry like that is still out there. A fresh wave of sobs racked my body as his words hit home. I glanced at my arm where finger-shaped bruises were already darkening against my pale skin. Jake had never gone this far before. Hello? Are you still there? The man's voice had softened imperceptibly, though still commanding. Yes, I whispered, not knowing why I was still on the call. What's your name? Elena, I answered automatically, too exhausted to lie. Elena, he repeated, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. Tell me where you are. I can't. I don't know you. No, but I'm not the one who hurt you. His tone shifted, something dangerous lurking beneath the surface. Is he still there? Whoever did this to you? No, I replied, remembering the slam of my apartment door as Jake had stormed out after our fight. He left. But he might come back. He has a key. The thought sent fresh terror through me. There was a pause, then the sound of movement on the other end. Low, muffled words I couldn't make out. He was speaking to someone else. Elena, listen carefully, he said, returning to our conversation. I need your address. Why would I? Because I'm going to make sure you're safe. I laughed bitterly. And I should trust a complete stranger I accidentally called? Yes. The absolute certainty in that single word was almost hypnotic, because right now, I'm the only one who answered. Those words hit me like a physical blow. He was right. I'd been trying to reach Melissa because I had no one else. My parents were 3 states away, and Jake had systematically isolated me from most of my friends over the 2 years we'd been together. I'm at Lakeside Apartments, I found myself saying. Building C, apartment 304. Good. Stay there. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. Wait, you're not actually coming here, are you? Panic threaded through my voice. No, he replied. But someone will. Someone I trust. You'll be safe. How will I know who? They'll say you're safe now. His voice was definitive. Stay on the line with me until they arrive. I don't understand why you're doing this. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, wincing as I accidentally pressed on a bruise. You don't need to understand. There was a rustling sound, then the distinct slam of a car door. Just know that some lines shouldn't be crossed, and whoever did this to you crossed one. For the next 20 minutes he kept me talking. Never about himself, deflecting any personal questions with practiced ease. Instead, he asked about me, simple things. What I did for work, editorial assistant at a small publishing house. My favorite book, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. How long I'd been in the city, 3 years. His questions were mundane, but they anchored me, pulling me back from the edge of panic. When the knock came at my door, I jumped. Someone's here, I whispered into the phone. Good, ask who it is before you open the door. I crept to the entrance, my heart pounding. Who is it? You're safe now, came the reply. A woman's voice, soft but firm. I glanced back at my phone. She said it, the phrase. "Open the door, Elena. I'll call you tomorrow." And with that, he ended our call, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. When I finally opened the door, I found a striking woman with copper-red hair waiting. She wore an elegant black pantsuit that couldn't quite disguise her athletic build, and her eyes scanned my apartment with professional assessment before landing on me. "My name is Vivian," she said, her gaze softening slightly as she took in my disheveled appearance. "May I come in?" I stepped back, allowing her entry, noting how she immediately locked the door behind her. "Pack a bag," she instructed, her tone gentle but leaving no room for argument. "Enough for a few days." "I'm not going anywhere with you," I protested weakly. "I don't even know who sent you." Vivian smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Someone who doesn't tolerate certain behaviors. Someone who can keep you safe from whoever did this." She gestured to my bruised arm. "But right now, all you need to know is that this apartment isn't secure. He has a key, yes?" I nodded reluctantly. "Then we're leaving. 10 minutes, Elena. Pack only what you need." Too exhausted to argue, I threw together some clothes, toiletries, and my laptop. As we left, Vivian had me lock the door, then produced something from her pocket that she inserted into the lock. "What are you doing?" "Making sure your key is the only one that works now," she explained, finishing whatever manipulation she'd performed on my lock. "Come, car's waiting." The black SUV idling at the curb had tinted windows and a driver who didn't even turn to look at us as we entered the back seat. I clutched my overnight bag to my chest like a shield. "Where are we going?" I asked as the vehicle pulled smoothly into traffic. "Somewhere safe," Vivian replied, her attention on her phone. "Get some rest if you can. It's about 40 minutes away." I meant to stay vigilant, to memorize our route in case I needed to escape, but exhaustion claimed me within minutes. I woke only when the car stopped, my neck stiff from leaning against the window. We'd arrived at a high-rise overlooking the river, the kind of luxury building I'd only ever seen from the outside. The doorman nodded respectfully to Vivian, not even glancing at my rumpled appearance as we crossed the marble-floored lobby to a private elevator that required a keycard. "This is where you live?" I asked. Bewildered, Vivian shook her head. "No, this is one of Mr. Russo's properties." The name meant nothing to me, but the way she said it, with a mixture of respect and caution, told me everything I needed to know. Whoever Mr. Russo was, he commanded deference. The elevator opened directly into a stunning apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the glittering city below. Modern furniture in muted grays and blues offered comfortable seating without sacrificing elegance. "The bedroom is through there," Vivian indicated a hallway. "Bathroom is en suite. Kitchen is fully stocked. There's a panic button by the bed if you need anything." She handed me a key card. "This works the elevator and the front door. Don't leave without calling me first." She entered her number into my phone. "How long am I supposed to stay here? Until it's safe for you to go home." Vivian's expression softened marginally. "Get some sleep, Elena. Things will make more sense in the morning." After she left, I stood frozen in the center of the luxurious space, feeling like an imposter. How had my life changed so dramatically in the span of a few hours? This morning, I'd been making coffee in my cramped apartment, trying to avoid anything that might trigger Jake's temper. Now I was standing in what had to be a multi-million-dollar penthouse, placed here by a man I'd accidentally called while crying. I explored cautiously, half expecting to find someone else in the apartment, but it was empty. The kitchen was indeed stocked with more food than I could eat in a week. The bathroom featured a rainfall shower and a soaking tub big enough to swim in. The bedroom held a king-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Exhaustion hit me again as the adrenaline finally ebbed. I changed into the oversized t-shirt I slept in and slid between the impossibly soft sheets. Despite the strangeness of my situation, I fell into a dreamless sleep within minutes. A persistent buzzing woke me. Disoriented, I fumbled for my phone, squinting at the unfamiliar number on the screen. "Hello?" My voice was rough with sleep. "Good morning, Elena." That voice, deep, controlled, unmistakable. "Did you sleep well?" I sat up, suddenly aware of my surroundings. "Yes, actually, thank you for whatever this is." "It's called safety," he replied simply. "Vivian tells me you settled in without problems." "She's very efficient. I ran a hand through my tangled hair, trying to gather my thoughts. I don't even know your name. A pause. Dominic. Well, Dominic, while I appreciate the rescue last night, I can't just stay in a stranger's apartment indefinitely. I have a job, responsibilities, all taken care of. Your employer received notification that you're taking emergency personal leave. You'll be paid for up to 2 weeks. I stood up, indignation clearing the last cobwebs of sleep. You had no right to do that. Would you prefer I let you return to work with visible bruises? Would that be better for your career? His tone remained calm, reasonable, making my outburst seem childish in comparison. That's not the point, I argued, though he'd effectively taken the wind from my sails. You can't just take over my life because I accidentally called you. I haven't taken over your life, Elena. I've merely provided you with options. Another pause. Options that don't include returning to a man who uses you as a punching bag. I flinched at the blunt assessment. It wasn't like that. Last night was the first time he ever... Don't lie to me, Dominic cut in, his voice suddenly hard. More importantly, don't lie to yourself. Tears sprang to my eyes, unbidden. He was right, of course. Jake's abuse had started small. Criticism, then control, then accidental shoves that evolved into last night's violence when I'd finally confronted him about the texts I'd found on his phone. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice small. For now, rest, heal. Think clearly without fear clouding your judgment. His tone softened marginally. The apartment is yours for as long as you need it. The call ended before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone once again. Somehow, I'd entrusted my safety to a complete stranger, a stranger with the resources to secure luxury apartments and manipulate my employment status without my knowledge. Who exactly was Dominic, and what had I gotten myself into? I spent the morning exploring the apartment, still half expecting to find cameras or some sinister trap, but discovered only thoughtful amenities. The refrigerator contained fresh fruit, organic vegetables, and prepared meals from what appeared to be a high-end restaurant. The bathroom cabinet held not just basic toiletries, but expensive skincare products, a brand new toothbrush, and even feminine hygiene products. Someone had thought of everything, but why? Around noon, my phone pinged with a text from Vivian. Clothes being delivered at 2 p.m. Send your sizes if the estimate is wrong. I stared at the message. What estimate? Had someone been guessing my measurements? The thought made me uneasy, but when I replied asking for clarification, Vivian simply wrote, Standard procedure. Mr. Russo believes everyone deserves dignity. That includes appropriate clothing. Mr. Russo. Dominic Russo. I opened my laptop and searched the name, prepared for anything from crime reports to business profiles. What I found was surprisingly little. There were several Dominic Russos in the country, but none with photos that triggered any recognition from his voice alone. One owned a chain of restaurants in Chicago. Another coached high school football in New Jersey. A third was a cardiologist in Phoenix. I refined my search to our city, finding only a brief mention of a D. Russo Properties in an article about luxury real estate development. No photos, minimal information. It was as if he deliberately maintained a low digital profile, something increasingly rare in today's world. The buzzer interrupted my investigation. The security desk announcing the clothing delivery. When I opened the door, a young woman with a professional smile wheeled in 3 garment bags and 2 large boxes. Compliments of Mr. Russo, she said, hanging the bags in the bedroom closet. There's a tailor on standby if anything needs adjustment. After she left, I unzipped the bags to find dresses, blouses, and pants that looked approximately my size, all with designer labels I recognized but had never been able to afford. The boxes contained loungewear, sleepwear, and undergarments still in their packaging. The generosity was overwhelming and suspicious. No one did something for nothing. I'd learned that lesson the hard way with Jake, whose early gifts had seemed so thoughtful before they transformed into weapons of guilt. After everything I've given you, this is how you repay me? His voice echoed in my head, accompanied by the phantom sensation of his fingers digging into my arm. I shuddered, rubbing my bruises unconsciously. My phone rang again at precisely 6 p.m. Dominic. Did the clothes arrive to your satisfaction? He asked without preamble. They're beautiful, but completely unnecessary, I replied. And frankly, a little presumptuous. I don't know what you expect in return. Interesting assumption. I could almost hear him smiling. What do men usually want from you, Elena? The question caught me off guard with its directness. That's not... You believe I've orchestrated this elaborate scenario because I expect sexual favors? He sounded more amused than offended. Why else would a stranger help me? Perhaps because I have the means to do so. Perhaps because I recognized something in your voice. A pause. Or perhaps because I despise men who believe strength means domination rather than protection. I sank onto the couch, confused by his words. I don't understand what you want from me. Right now, nothing. Eventually, a decision. What kind of decision? Whether you want to reclaim your life on your own terms, or return to the cage you were in. His voice hardened slightly, though I should warn you, I've ensured the latter option will be uncomfortable for all involved. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean? What did you do? Nothing that wasn't warranted, he replied cryptically. Have you eaten today? The abrupt subject change threw me. Yes, the food in the refrigerator is quite good. Good, you're too thin. The observation wasn't judgmental, merely factual. There's a terrace off the main living area. The sunset view is worth seeing. He ended the call as abruptly as he'd initiated it, leaving me with the distinct impression I'd just been given an instruction rather than a suggestion. Still, I found myself wandering to the glass doors I hadn't yet explored, sliding them open to discover a spacious terrace, furnished with comfortable seating and potted plants. The air was cool against my skin as I stepped out, and the view... I gasped softly. The city spread before me like a living painting, the setting sun casting everything in shades of gold and amber. Below, tiny figures and vehicles moved along the streets, while the river reflected the deepening colors of dusk. For the first time since Jake had wrapped his hand around my throat the previous night, I took a full breath, feeling the tightness in my chest ease slightly. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Beautiful, isn't it? I looked around, scanning nearby buildings, but saw no one watching. How did he know I was out here? Are you spying on me? I texted back. No. I simply know the effect that particular view has at sunset. It reminds us that we're simultaneously significant and insignificant. I pondered his words, watching the city lights begin to flicker on as darkness fell. Despite my suspicion, there was something oddly comforting about the knowledge that someone knew exactly where I was. After years of Jake's unpredictable moods and manipulations, the straightforward nature of Dominic's communications felt almost refreshing, which was a dangerous thought. I knew nothing about this man except that he commanded resources, had people at his disposal, and maintained a deliberately low profile. None of these were reassuring characteristics. For all I knew, I'd escaped one dangerous man only to fall into the orbit of another. I woke to the sound of my phone ringing, fumbling to answer it in the darkness. Are you okay? Dominic's voice was alert despite the hour. What? Yes, I was just sleeping, I replied, confused. Why? You triggered the panic button. I sat up, glancing at the small device on the nightstand. No, I didn't. Then I realized I must have hit it while reaching for my phone. I'm sorry. It was an accident. A beat of silence. You're certain? Yes, I promise. I just moved in my sleep. Very well. He didn't sound entirely convinced. Since you're awake, tell me what you're afraid of. The question was so unexpected that I answered truthfully. Right now? Everything. You. Jake. What happens next? That's a start, he replied, his voice softening marginally. But it's not specific enough. What exactly do you fear will happen? I stared into the darkness. With Jake? That he'll find me. That he'll convince me it was my fault, like he always does. That I'll believe him, like I always do. I swallowed hard. With you. That there's a price for all this I'm not prepared to pay. There's always a price, Elena. His words sent a chill through me until he continued. But in this case, it's not yours to pay. It belongs to the man who put those bruises on your body. Something in his tone made me shiver. What are you going to do to him? Nothing he hasn't earned. The cold certainty in his voice should have frightened me more than it did. Go back to sleep. You're safe. Despite the ominous conversation, I did sleep, better than I had in months. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows, and my phone showed multiple missed calls from Jake. I stared at the notifications, my stomach knotting with anxiety. Against my better judgment, I listened to his voicemails. Elena, where are you? I've been trying to reach you all night. I'm sorry about what happened. You know I didn't mean it. Call me back. Elena, this isn't funny. Your boss said you took emergency leave. Are you at your parents'? Just tell me where you are. Listen, I know you're upset, but you can't just disappear. I was worried sick. I had to file a missing persons report. The police are looking for you now. Just come home and we can sort this out. The last message sent ice through my veins. I don't know who you're with or what game you're playing, but these guys who came to my apartment, real cute. Real fucking professional. You think I don't know what this is? You're trying to scare me? I grew up in this city, baby. I know people too. You better call me back right fucking now. His voice had that dangerous edge I'd learned to recognize, the one that preceded his worst outbursts. Whatever Dominic had done, it had enraged Jake rather than intimidated him. I was still staring at my phone when it rang again. Vivian this time. Don't call him back, she said without greeting. We're aware of the situation. He filed a police report, I said, my voice shaking. He's saying I'm missing. It's being handled. Her tone was efficient but not unkind. Pack a bag with what you need for the day. I'll be there in 20 minutes to take you to your meeting. What meeting? With the lawyer. 90 minutes later, I found myself in a sleek downtown office, being ushered into a conference room where a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s introduced herself as Margaret Chen. I understand you're in a difficult situation, Ms. Winters, she said, opening a folder that already contained documents with my name on them. I've been retained to help you navigate it legally. Retained by whom? I asked, though I already knew the answer. My client prefers discretion, she replied smoothly. What matters is that I'm here to protect your interests. Now let's discuss the restraining order and the counterstatement to Mr. Porter's missing persons report. For the next hour, Ms. Chen guided me through documenting Jake's escalating behavior, photographing my bruises, and signing statements that would be filed with the court. She handled everything with a brisk efficiency that left me feeling both protected and slightly overwhelmed. One last thing, she said as we concluded. Mr. Porter's lease agreement. It appears your name is not on it, correct? I nodded. It's his apartment. I still have my own place, the one I called from that night. Good. That simplifies matters. She passed me a business card. Call me directly if he contacts you again. Day or night. Vivian was waiting when I emerged, guiding me back to the SUV with a protective alertness that made me wonder about her background. Lunch, she announced. Then we're meeting Dr. Reynolds. Another meeting? I asked, exhaustion creeping in. Who's Dr. Reynolds? A physician who makes house calls to certain clients. Standard procedure after an incident. I bristled at her phrasing. I don't need a doctor. Vivian's expression remained neutral. Mr. Russo disagrees. The doctor turned out to be a compassionate woman who examined my bruises, documented them professionally, and checked me for other injuries with a gentleness that nearly brought me to tears. She left me with pain medication, arnica gel for the bruising, and her private number, just in case. By the time Vivian returned me to the apartment, I was emotionally drained. I'd spent the day being efficiently processed through a system I hadn't known existed, a private network of professionals apparently at Dominic Russo's disposal. Why is he doing all this? I finally asked Vivian, as the elevator rose to the penthouse. She studied me for a moment before answering. Mr. Russo has very specific values. One of them is that innocent people should be protected. She hesitated. And he particularly detests men who harm women. But why me? Because I accidentally called him? Some might call that fate. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Get some rest, Elena. He'll call you tonight. As promised, my phone rang at exactly 7 p.m. How was your day? Dominic asked, as if he were a normal acquaintance and not the mysterious orchestrator of my entire day. Overwhelming, I answered honestly. The lawyer, the doctor. It's a lot to process. Necessary steps. His voice was matter of fact. The police have closed their investigation. Your statement and the doctor's report were convincing. I clutched the phone tighter. Jake said something about guys coming to his apartment. What did you do? A pause. I simply had a message delivered. A reminder about respecting boundaries. You threatened him. I informed him of consequences, Dominic corrected. There's a difference. And if he doesn't listen, what then? Then the consequences escalate. The calm certainty in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. But that's not your concern. Your only task is to heal and decide what you want your life to look like moving forward. Without Jake, I said, making it half statement, half question. That much isn't negotiable, he replied, a steel edge entering his tone. The rest is your choice. I dreamed of Jake that night, not the Jake who had hurt me, but the Jake I'd fallen in love with. The one who brought me soup when I was sick and laughed at my terrible jokes. The one who had seemed so different from the controlling, jealous man he became. I woke with tears on my cheeks, mourning something that had never truly existed. The morning was gray, rain pattering against the windows as I made coffee in the sleek kitchen. A text from Vivian informed me there were no appointments today, but I should expect a delivery around noon. I spent the morning catching up on work emails, surprised to find that my emergency leave hadn't resulted in any crises. My boss's message was unexpectedly supportive, mentioning resources for personal situations that made me wonder exactly what she'd been told. The delivery turned out to be books, a stack of novels and memoirs I'd mentioned to Dominic during our first phone conversation, when he'd kept me talking until Vivian arrived. I ran my fingers over the covers, unsettled by the realization that he'd been paying such close attention. That evening, Dominic called at his usual time. Did the books arrive? He asked after minimal pleasantries. Yes, thank you. Though it's a bit disconcerting that you remembered everything I mentioned. I remember everything, Elena, he said simply, as if this were a normal trait and not slightly terrifying. Why? The question had been building in me for days. Why go to all this trouble for a stranger who called you by mistake? A pause, longer this time. Would you believe me if I said I heard something in your voice that night? Something that reminded me of someone I once knew? His tone held a note I hadn't heard before, a hint of something personal, almost vulnerable, quickly masked. Who? I pressed gently. It doesn't matter. She's been gone a long time. He cleared his throat. What matters is that you're safe now. Have you thought about what you want to do next? I had, in fact, been thinking of little else. I need to go back to work eventually. And I'll need to get things from my apartment. The lawyer can arrange for your possessions to be packed and moved. As for work, whenever you're ready, transportation can be arranged. I can't live in this penthouse forever, Dominic. I moved to the window, watching raindrops trail down the glass. I need to reclaim my life. Yes, you do. His voice softened unexpectedly. But reclaiming doesn't mean returning to exactly what was. Sometimes it means building something new. After we hung up, I stood at the window for a long time, watching the city lights blur through the rain. Something was shifting inside me. A realization that I didn't have to go back to my cramped apartment, my lackluster job, my isolated existence. For the first time in years, I felt the stirrings of possibility. The next morning brought sunshine and a text from a number I didn't recognize. I'm outside your building. We need to talk. Jake. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Before I could respond, another text arrived. I know you're in there. Security won't let me up, but I'll wait all day if I have to. I called Vivian, my heart pounding. He's here, I said when she answered. Downstairs. Stay in the apartment, she replied, her voice tense. Don't respond to any messages. We'll handle it. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Dominic, are you all right? He asked, his tone controlled, but with an underlying current I couldn't identify. Yes, I'm in the apartment, Vivian said. I know what she said. He's been removed from the premises. What does that mean? A pause. It means he won't be waiting outside anymore. But this does present a problem. He's become more aggressive than anticipated. Fear clutched at my throat. What if he comes back? What if he follows me when I go to work? That won't happen. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring, but instead sent a chill down my spine. How can you be so sure? Because I'm taking more direct measures. Something dangerous lurked in his tone. Pack for a few days. Vivian will take you somewhere else while the situation is addressed. Addressed how? Alarm bells rang in my mind. Dominic, you can't just... I can do whatever is necessary to keep you safe. He cut in, his voice suddenly hard. And I will. Be ready in 30 minutes. He ended the call, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. What exactly was he planning to do? And how had I become so entangled with a man who clearly operated outside normal boundaries of law and society? The car drove for over an hour, heading north along the coastline, until we turned onto a private road winding through dense forest. Eventually, we emerged at a gated property overlooking the ocean. A modern glass and stone house perched dramatically on the cliff edge. This is Mr. Russo's private residence, Vivian explained as we approached, the massive iron gates swinging open automatically. You'll be staying in the guest wing. I stared at the imposing structure, my throat suddenly dry. He lives here? When he wants privacy, yes. She glanced at me. Don't worry. He's not here currently. Business in the city. The interior was just as impressive as the exterior. Soaring ceilings, walls of glass showcasing the ocean view, minimalist furnishings in muted tones of gray, blue, and brown. The guest wing, as Vivian called it, was larger than my entire apartment, with its own living area, bedroom, and bathroom. The house is fully staffed, Vivian informed me. Maria handles the cooking and cleaning. Carlos maintains the grounds and security. They live in the separate building we passed on the way in. She handed me a small device that looked like a remote. This will summon help if you need anything. Dinner is at 7 in the main dining room. After she left, I explored my new temporary home, still trying to process the rapid escalation of events. Just a week ago, I'd been in my apartment, trying to pretend my relationship wasn't toxic. Now I was in the private home of a man I'd never met, but who seemed to have unlimited resources and concerning connections. The bathroom featured a shower with multiple heads, and a bathtub overlooking the ocean. I decided a hot bath might help calm my racing thoughts. As I soaked in the fragrant water, watching seagulls wheel against the blue sky, I tried to make sense of my situation. Dominic Russo was clearly not just a wealthy businessman. His ability to mobilize lawyers, doctors, and security personnel so quickly suggested connections that went beyond normal channels. The way Vivian and others deferred to him indicated a power structure I didn't fully understand, and yet, he had done nothing to harm me, quite the opposite. Every action had been protective, every arrangement made for my comfort and safety. But his words from our last conversation echoed in my mind. I'm taking more direct measures. What did that mean for Jake? Dinner was served by a woman in her 50s, with a kind smile and watchful eyes. Maria placed dishes of seafood paella and fresh bread before me in the cavernous dining room, where I sat alone at one end of a table that could seat 12. Mr. Russo called, she told me as she poured white wine into a crystal glass. He sends his regrets that he cannot join you this evening, but hopes to return tomorrow. I nodded, uncertain how to respond. Part of me was relieved at the delay in finally meeting him face to face. Another part was anxious about what addressing the situation entailed. After dinner, I retreated to my room, where I found my phone blinking with notifications. Multiple missed calls from Jake, followed by increasingly desperate text messages. They're watching me. I can't even go to work without being followed. Who is this guy? What did you tell him about me? Elena, please. Whatever he's paying you, it's not worth it. Just come home. The last message sent ice through my veins. Fine. You want to play it this way? I still have those pictures of you. Wonder how your boss would feel about seeing them. You have 24 hours to call me, or they go public. My hands trembled as I set down the phone. The pictures. I'd almost forgotten. Early in our relationship, when things were good, Jake had convinced me to let him take intimate photos. Just for us, he'd promised. Now they were leverage. I called Dominic, Not caring that it was nearly midnight, he answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "Jake is threatening to release private photos of me," I said, my voice breaking. "He says I have 24 hours. A beat of silence then. I see. His voice had taken on that dangerously calm quality I was beginning to recognize. "Send me screenshots of his messages." "What are you going to do?" "Ensure those photos never see the light of day." The certainty in his tone was absolute. "And make him regret ever threatening you. Dominic, please don't do anything illegal. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. Some men only understand one language, Elena." His voice softened fractionally. "But I promise you this. By this time tomorrow, Jake Porter will no longer be a concern in your life. Get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow." Despite his reassurance, sleep eluded me. I paced the guest suite, watching the moonlight on the waves below, imagining scenarios ranging from bribery to violence. Who was this man I'd accidentally called? What was he capable of? And why did I feel more protected than frightened by his intensity? Morning brought no answers, only Maria with a breakfast tray, and news that Dominic would arrive by afternoon. I spent the day alternating between anxiety and a strange floating calm. Whatever happened next was beyond my control. I was sitting on the terrace overlooking the ocean when I heard the sound of a car approaching. My heartbeat quickened as footsteps crossed the stone floor behind me. "Elena." Just my name, spoken in that deep voice I'd come to know over the phone. I turned, and for the first time, I saw the face of the man who had upended my entire existence. Dominic Russo was not what I expected. I'd imagined someone older, perhaps, with the hardened features of a typical movie villain. Instead, he appeared to be in his late 30s, tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that did nothing to disguise his athletic build. His face was striking, rather than conventionally handsome. Strong jaw, prominent cheekbones, and eyes so dark they seemed black in the afternoon light. His hair, also black with touches of silver at the temples, was cut short and precise. But it was his presence that truly caught me off guard, an aura of contained power, an absolute control that seemed to fill the space around him. "It's good to finally meet you in person," he said, remaining where he stood, as if giving me space to adjust to his physical reality. I rose from my chair, suddenly aware of my casual attire, jeans and a sweater, compared to his formal suit. "Thank you for everything, I suppose." A slight smile touched his lips. "You're welcome, though your tone suggests some reservation." "Can you blame me?" I gestured vaguely at the house, the ocean view. "This is all so far beyond normal that I'm still trying to process it." He nodded once, acknowledging the point. "Would you walk with me? There are things we should discuss." We followed a path that wound along the cliff edge, the ocean breeze ruffling my hair as we walked in silence for several minutes. "It's done," he finally said, his gaze on the horizon. "Jake Porter is no longer a threat to you." My steps faltered. "What does that mean? What did you do to him?" Dominic turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "I simply ensured he understood the consequences of his actions. The photos have been deleted from all his devices. He's accepted a job transfer to the West Coast, effective immediately. And he knows that any contact with you, direct or indirect, will result in certain documents regarding his less-than-legal side businesses being sent to the appropriate authorities." He agreed to all that? Just like that? People tend to be cooperative when they realize the alternative is worse. Something cold flickered in his eyes. "He won't bother you again." I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt a complex mix of emotions, gratitude, fear, and a disturbing sense that I was now indebted to this enigmatic man in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. "Why did you help me?" I asked again, needing to understand. The truth this time. Dominic was silent for so long I thought he might not answer. Then he gestured to a bench overlooking the water. "Sit with me," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I sat beside him, acutely aware of his proximity. Up close, I could detect his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and spice, and noticed the fine details of his appearance. A small scar near his right eyebrow, the precise cut of his suit, the heavy watch on his wrist that probably cost more than my car. "I had a sister," Dominic began, his eyes on the horizon. Sophia. She was brilliant, studying to be a doctor. She fell in love with a man who seemed perfect at first. Charming, attentive, ambitious. The past tense sent a chill through me. What happened? The same story you've lived. It started small. Criticism, then control. Isolation from friends and family. His jaw tightened. By the time I realized what was happening, she was trapped in a cycle of abuse and denial. When I tried to intervene, she defended him. I nodded, recognizing the pattern. It's hard to admit you've been fooled, that the person you love is hurting you. Yes. He turned to look at me, his dark eyes intense. She called me one night crying. Said she was finally leaving him. I was arranging everything. New apartment, new job in another city, security measures. His voice grew rough. The next morning, police found her body in their apartment. He claimed she fell down the stairs during an argument. "Oh my God," I whispered, my hand instinctively moving toward his before I caught myself. There wasn't enough evidence to convict him. He walked free. Dominic's expression remained controlled, but I could sense the rage beneath the surface. I made sure he didn't stay free for long. The implication hung in the air between us. I should have been terrified, but instead found myself asking, what happened to him? He had an unfortunate accident while sailing. Dominic's voice was detached, clinical. Bodies lost at sea are rarely recovered. I shivered, not from fear but from the intensity of emotion radiating from him. So when I called you crying, I heard my sister's voice. He met my gaze directly. I couldn't save Sophia, but I could save you. The raw honesty in his confession stunned me. This wasn't what I'd expected, not a man with a hero complex or hidden agendas, but someone driven by profound loss and the determination to prevent history from repeating itself. I don't know what to say, I admitted. You don't need to say anything. He stood, smoothing his suit jacket. Now you have the truth. What you do with it is your choice. We walked back to the house in silence, my mind racing with this new information. It explained so much. His immediate response to my accidental call, the resources mobilized on my behalf, his implacable determination to neutralize Jake. But it also confirmed my suspicions about who exactly Dominic Russo was and what he was capable of. How long have I been staying in your properties? I asked as we reached the terrace. Technically, they're owned by various corporations, he replied with a slight smile. But yes, they're mine. And Vivian, the lawyer, the doctor? People I trust, people who work for me in various capacities. I took a deep breath. And what exactly is your business, Dominic? Because I'm starting to think it's not just real estate development. He studied me for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. My family has diverse interests across several industries. Some legitimate, some less so. I've spent the past decade moving our operations toward the former while maintaining the advantages of the latter. The careful phrasing confirmed what I'd begun to suspect. You're involved with organized crime. I prefer to think of it as organized power, he corrected, unfazed by my directness. The methods change, but the principles remain. Protection, loyalty, respect. I should have been running for the door. Instead, I found myself oddly calm. And what happens now? To me? That depends entirely on you. He gestured toward the house. Dinner will be served soon. We can continue this conversation afterward if you wish. Dinner was a surreal experience. Sharing a meal with a man I now knew was some kind of modern mafioso, discussing art, literature, and travel, as if we were on a normal date. Dominic was surprisingly well-read, with strong opinions about the books he'd sent me, and thoughtful insights into human behavior. Had I met him under different circumstances, I might have found him fascinating rather than intimidating. Who was I kidding? He was both. After dinner, we moved to the living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the night ocean, illuminated by a full moon that carved a silver path across the water. Dominic poured 2 glasses of amber liquor from a crystal decanter. I need to know what you want, Elena, he said, handing me a glass. Not just regarding Jake, but for your life going forward. I took a small sip, the whiskey warming my throat. I haven't thought beyond survival for so long that I'm not sure I know anymore. Then perhaps it's time to start. He leaned against the window frame, silhouetted against the moonlit sea. You can return to your apartment, your job, your life, with the knowledge that Jake is no longer a threat. Or... He paused, watching me carefully. You could start fresh. New job, new place, new possibilities. With strings attached? No strings. His voice was firm. Whatever decision you make, my help comes without obligation. I wanted to believe him, but experience had taught me to be wary of men offering salvation. Why would you do that? After telling me about your sister, I understand why you helped initially. But this ongoing support, because I see something in you worth supporting. He set his glass down and approached, stopping a respectful distance away. Intelligence, resilience, the capacity to rebuild after being broken. I'm not broken, I said automatically, then laughed softly at the transparent lie. Or maybe I am, but I don't want to be defined by what Jake did to me. Good. Dominic nodded approvingly. That's the first step. Toward what? Reclaiming your power. His eyes held mine. Every person has power, Elena. Some use it to control others. Some give it away. The wisest learn to hold it within themselves. There was something hypnotic about his intensity. His absolute certainty. I found myself wanting to lean into it, to borrow his strength until I could rebuild my own. I want to go back to work, I said, making the decision as I spoke. But not to my old apartment. Too many memories. Understandable. There are several properties available if... No. I shook my head. I appreciate everything you've done, but I need to stand on my own. Find my own place. Pay my own way. Rather than disappointment, I saw approval in his expression. As you wish. Vivian can help with the arrangements. And us? I asked, the question slipping out before I could reconsider. What happens with... this? I gestured between us, unable to define exactly what this was. Something changed in his eyes. A softening, a heat that hadn't been there before. That also depends on you. He took a step closer, and I found myself holding my breath. Up close, the power he radiated was almost tangible, like standing near an electrical storm. I find myself drawn to you, Elena. His voice had dropped lower, sending a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. But I won't pursue that, unless you're certain it's what you want. You've had enough choices taken from you. The acknowledgement of my agency, my right to choose, affected me more deeply than I expected. Jake had systematically stripped away my autonomy, making even small decisions feel dangerous. I don't know what I want yet, I admitted. This is all so overwhelming. Dominic nodded, stepping back to restore the space between us. Take all the time you need. There's no rush. I returned to work the following week, staying temporarily in a downtown hotel while I searched for a new apartment. True to his word, Dominic had removed all obstacles. Jake had indeed left town. My possessions had been moved from my old apartment, and my boss welcomed me back with a warmth that suggested she knew more than she was saying. Vivian remained my primary contact, checking in daily and handling practical matters with her usual efficiency. Dominic himself maintained a respectful distance, calling only occasionally to ensure I was settling in. I found myself both relieved by his restraint and strangely disappointed by it. The nightmares began about 2 weeks after my return to normal life. I would wake gasping, convinced Jake was in my room, his hands around my throat. The hotel's security features, key card access, 24-hour front desk, did little to ease my anxiety once darkness fell. After the third night of minimal sleep, I broke down and called Dominic. I can't do this, I admitted, my voice shaking. I keep thinking he's going to find me. He won't, Dominic replied, his certainty like an anchor in my storm of fear. But if you don't feel safe, other arrangements can be made. I don't want to go backward, I said. I need to stand on my own, but security doesn't mean surrender, Elena. His tone gentled. Would it help if someone stayed outside your door tonight? Just until you can sleep? An hour later, a polite, professional woman named Rebecca arrived at my hotel room, introducing herself as my overnight security. She would remain in the hallway, she explained, ensuring no one approached my door. I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. This pattern continued, small steps forward into independence, followed by moments of fear that sent me reaching for the safety Dominic represented. Each time, he provided exactly what I needed without overstepping, without making me feel weak for asking. When I finally found an apartment I liked, a sunny one-bedroom in a secure building across town from my old place, he offered a housewarming gift, a state-of-the-art security system, professionally installed. No cameras inside, he assured me. Just perimeter security and direct connection to a monitoring service. The gesture touched me deeply, practical protection that respected my privacy and independence. The night after I moved in, Dominic called with an unexpected question. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Not in your apartment or my home. A public restaurant of your choosing. A date. A normal public date with the man who had orchestrated my rescue and recovery. The prospect both thrilled and terrified me. "I'd like that," I said, surprising myself with how true it was. I chose a small Italian restaurant near the river, casual enough that I wouldn't feel underdressed, but nice enough to make it feel like a proper occasion. When I arrived, Dominic was already waiting, dressed more casually than I'd ever seen him in dark jeans and a gray button-down shirt that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. Two things immediately struck me. First, how he'd positioned himself at a table with his back to the wall, offering full view of the entrance, and second, the subtle presence of his security, a man and a woman at separate tables nearby, alert but unobtrusive. "Old habits," he explained when he caught me noticing. "In my position, awareness becomes second nature. Throughout dinner, I found myself relaxing in his company. Outside the context of crisis, Dominic revealed a dry wit and genuine curiosity about my thoughts and experiences. He asked about my work, my writing aspirations, my favorite places in the city, never dominating the conversation, but engaging with everything I shared. "You seem different," I observed as we shared tiramisu for dessert. "Different how?" "Less intense. More human." He smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his face. Perhaps because for the first time we're meeting as equals, not as rescuer and rescued. The insight resonated with something I'd been feeling, but couldn't articulate. "Is that even possible? Given how we met, what you know about me, what you've done for me?" "That depends on what you want this to be," he replied, his dark eyes holding mine. "A thank you dinner? The formal conclusion of an unusual arrangement? Or perhaps," he paused, "the beginning of something new?" The question hung between us, laden with possibilities that both excited and frightened me. After Jake, I'd sworn I would never give another man power over me. Yet here I was, undeniably drawn to perhaps the most powerful man I'd ever met. "I don't know if I'm ready for something new," I admitted, "but I'd like to find out." Spring turned to summer as Dominic and I carefully navigated the undefined territory between us. We established a routine of sorts, dinner once or twice a week, always in public restaurants, always with his security discreetly present. Occasionally he would invite me to events, a gallery opening, a symphony performance, a charity gala, where I glimpsed fragments of his public persona. In these settings, Dominic was respected, sometimes feared, but never approached casually. People maintained a careful distance, offering deference with their body language if not their words. I began to understand the complex web of connections that constituted his world: legitimate business associates, political figures who pretended not to know him too well, and the occasional individual whose respect seemed tinged with wariness. Through it all, Dominic remained attentive, but never possessive. He never pressured me for more than I was ready to give, never appeared at my apartment unannounced, never made me feel that his help came with expectations. "You're different from what I expected," I told him one evening as we walked along the riverfront after dinner. "And what did you expect?" he asked, his hand resting lightly at the small of my back, a gesture of protection rather than possession. "Someone more controlling, given what you do, who you are." He considered this. "The common misconception about power is that it must be constantly displayed to be effective. True power rarely requires demonstration. Is that why you never talk about your business with me?" "I don't discuss it because it isn't relevant to us," he replied simply, "and because there are aspects of my life that are best kept separate from what we're building." What we were building. The phrase lingered in my mind long after he'd driven me home and kissed me goodnight. A kiss that had grown increasingly difficult to keep brief as the weeks passed. I was falling for Dominic Russo. Despite knowing what he was, despite the danger his world represented, I found myself drawn to his unwavering strength, his surprising gentleness, and the absolute safety I felt in his presence. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd escaped one dangerous relationship only to be contemplating another. But the differences were profound. Jake had used violence to control me. Dominic used his power to ensure I could make my own choices. Jake had isolated me. Dominic encouraged my independence. Jake had diminished me. Dominic seemed determined to help me grow stronger. Still, doubts plagued me. Was I simply trading one form of dependency for another? Was I attracted to Dominic himself? Or just the security he represented? And most troublingly, could I truly love a man whose business inevitably involved violence, even if I never witnessed it directly? These questions circled in my mind as summer heat gave way to autumn chill. My life had stabilized. I'd been promoted at work, made new friends, even started writing again in the evenings. The nightmares had faded, and I no longer flinched at unexpected sounds. By all measures, I was healing. Yet something remained unresolved between Dominic and me, a tension that grew with every dinner, every carefully restrained goodnight kiss, every text message checking that I'd arrived home safely. The tipping point came on a rainy October night, almost exactly 6 months after my accidental call to him. We'd attended a performance at the Symphony Hall, and the downpour afterward had his driver pulling directly to the entrance. As we hurried to the car, a man bumped roughly into me, nearly knocking me down. Before I could regain my balance, Dominic had moved, a swift, fluid motion that placed his body between me and the stranger. His hand had disappeared inside his jacket, and the look on his face was one I'd never seen before. Cold, lethal focus. The moment stretched, taut with potential violence, until the man raised his hands apologetically and backed away, clearly recognizing something dangerous in Dominic's stance. In the car, raindrops glistening on his hair and suit, Dominic was perfectly composed again, but I had glimpsed the other side of him, the capacity for violence that lurked beneath his controlled exterior. "You were going to hurt him," I said quietly as the car pulled away. "If he had been a threat to you, yes." No denial, no softening of the truth. Just for bumping into me, Dominic turned to face me fully, his expression serious. "I don't take chances with your safety." Something in his tone, the raw possession in it, sent a shiver through me that wasn't entirely fear. "Take me to your place," I said suddenly, the words surprising us both. His eyes searched mine. "Are you certain?" I nodded, my decision made. "I need to see all of you, Dominic, not just the parts you've been willing to show me." The drive to his city penthouse, not the oceanfront property where I'd stayed before, passed in charged silence. Unlike the other properties I'd seen, this one felt personal, with curated art on the walls and books that showed actual use rather than decorative placement. As soon as the door closed behind us, the careful restraint that had characterized our relationship shifted. Dominic's eyes darkened as he moved toward me, purpose in every step. "Last chance to change your mind," he said, his voice rough with barely contained desire. In answer, I closed the distance between us, my hands finding the lapels of his suit jacket. "I'm tired of being afraid," I whispered. "Of Jake's memory, of what I feel for you, of what you might do if someone threatens me." His hands came up to frame my face, surprisingly gentle given the intensity in his eyes. "You never need to fear me, Elena, never." "I know," I replied, and realized I meant it. For all his dangerous power, Dominic had never directed it at me, only for me, around me, to protect me. His kiss was nothing like the restrained goodnight kisses we'd shared. This was possession, claiming, a physical manifestation of the intensity he usually kept carefully leashed. I responded with equal fervor, months of tension and uncertainty dissolving into pure sensation. Later, tangled in his sheets with the city lights glimmering through the windows, I traced the scars on his body, evidence of a violent past he didn't try to hide or explain. Dominic watched me through half-lidded eyes, his fingers drawing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "Why me?" I asked, the question that had lingered since our first connection. "Beyond reminding you of Sophia. Why have you been so patient, so careful with me?" He was quiet for a long moment, his hand stilling on my skin. "Because you called me crying, but you weren't broken," he finally said. "Hurt, yes. Afraid, yes. But still fighting, still determined to survive." His fingers resumed their gentle exploration. "That kind of strength is rare, Elena. Worth protecting, worth waiting for. Even though I questioned you, doubted your motives, especially because of that." A smile touched his lips. "Blind trust is foolishness. You were right to be cautious." I settled against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "What happens now?" "That depends on what you want." His arm tightened around me. "I can offer you protection, comfort, anything material you might desire, but I won't offer false promises about my life changing fundamentally." I appreciated his honesty, even as it highlighted the complications of our relationship. "And if what I want is you, just as you are?" Something vulnerable flickered in his expression, a rare glimpse behind the armor he wore so effortlessly. "Then I would consider myself fortunate beyond measure." He brushed his lips against my forehead. "But you should know what that means, Elena. My world is not always safe. There will be things I cannot share with you, places you cannot go, questions I cannot answer. Because you're trying to protect me? Yes. And because some burdens are mine alone to carry." I thought about what he was really saying. That there would always be aspects of his business, his power, that remained separate from us. That I would be sharing him with obligations and loyalties established long before I entered his life. Could I accept that? A relationship with boundaries and secrets, with the knowledge that the man I loved operated in shadows I would never fully see. "I want honesty," I said finally. "Not about your business, but about us. No lies between us, even when the truth is difficult. No decisions about my safety made without consulting me." I looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "I've had enough of being controlled and protected without my consent." Dominic nodded slowly. "Agreed. Though my protective instincts may occasionally override my better judgment." I smiled at the admission. I noticed. "What else?" he asked, his attention fully focused on me. "Time," I answered. "To continue building my own life alongside whatever we create together. My work, my writing, my friends, those remain mine. Of course." He seemed almost offended that I thought it necessary to specify. "Your independence is part of what draws me to you, Elena. I have no desire to clip your wings." The conviction in his voice eased something in my chest, the lingering fear that any man's love would ultimately become a cage. Dominic might be possessive, protective to an extreme degree, but he had consistently respected my agency from the moment I accidentally called him. "Then I want this," I said simply. "Us. However complicated it might be." His response was to pull me closer, his kiss a silent promise that needed no words. The first test of our arrangement came sooner than expected. 3 weeks after I'd essentially moved into Dominic's penthouse, while maintaining my own apartment, an independence he never questioned, I was working late at the publishing house, finishing edits on a manuscript. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. "Car waiting when you're ready. Don't take the subway tonight." I frowned at the screen. This wasn't our usual arrangement. I typically took the subway home unless we had plans, in which case he'd tell me in advance about the car. "Why?" I texted back. "Everything okay?" "Minor situation being handled, precautionary measure only." The deliberately vague response raised my suspicions. I called rather than continuing the text exchange. "What's going on?" I asked when he answered. A brief hesitation. "A business rival is being problematic. It's nothing to concern yourself with, but I'd prefer you take the car tonight." "What kind of problematic? The legal kind or the other kind?" "Elena," he said, a warning note in his voice. "You promised honesty," I reminded him. A sigh. "There have been threats. Nothing specific regarding you. But until the situation is resolved, additional security measures are prudent." Cold fear trickled down my spine, followed immediately by determination not to let it control me. "Thank you for telling me. I'll take the car." "Thank you," he replied, relief evident in his tone. "I'll see you at home." Home. Despite maintaining my apartment, Dominic's penthouse had indeed become home over the past weeks. My clothes hung in his closet, my books mingled with his on the shelves. My favorite tea occupied a permanent spot in the kitchen cabinet. The driver who waited outside my office building was not the usual one, I noticed immediately. This man was younger, more obviously alert, with the subtle bulge of a shoulder holster visible beneath his jacket. "Ms. Winters," he greeted me professionally. "I'm Marcus. Mr. Russo asked me to see you home safely." The enhanced security continued for nearly 2 weeks. Drivers who were clearly more security than chauffeur. Vivian appearing casually at my office to join me for lunch. Dominic himself more watchful, more tense than usual. I didn't press for details, recognizing the burden he already carried. Instead, I focused on normalcy, our dinners together, quiet evenings reading while he worked on his laptop, the increasingly familiar rhythm of our shared life. When the situation was finally resolved, Dominic came home late one night, tension visibly draining from his shoulders as he loosened his tie. "It's done," he said simply, accepting the glass of whiskey I offered him. "No one hurt?" I asked carefully. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No one who didn't deserve it." Before I could respond, he added, "But no, nothing fatal. Sometimes the right pressure applied in the right places is more effective than violence." I nodded, relieved both by his words and by the fact that he'd shared even this much with me. It was a delicate balance we were striking. His need to protect me from the darker aspects of his world, and my need to not be kept completely in the dark. "Thank you," he said unexpectedly, setting down his glass and drawing me close. "For not demanding details I couldn't give. For trusting me to handle it." "That's the deal, isn't it?" I replied, my arm sliding around his waist. "I trust you with the business side. You trust me with my own safety and choices." He pulled back slightly to study my face, something like wonder in his expression. "Do you know how rare that is? Someone who understands the boundaries without resenting them?" I smiled, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. I had a good teacher in setting healthy boundaries. Dominic caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "I've been thinking," he said, his tone shifting to something more serious, "about the future. Our future." My heart quickened. "Oh?" "Not everything in my life is complicated, Elena. Some things are very simple." His dark eyes held mine intently. "I love you. I want to build a life with you, one that's secure, but still allows you the freedom you need." "I love you too," I whispered, the words feeling simultaneously momentous and like the most natural thing I'd ever said. His smile then was unlike any I'd seen before, open, almost boyish in its delight. "Then perhaps it's time we discussed making more permanent arrangements."